Hi, this is Evan Schwerbrock, the blind strength coach, owner of Cane Enable Fitness and world's strongest disabled man, and you are listening to White Canes Connect.
Direct from Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, you're listening to Simon Studio, presented by White Canes Connect, the podcast of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. Hey there, PA Federationists. I'm your host, Simon Bonenfant. Welcome in to another episode of Simon Studio. It is so great to be with you today. I hope you're really doing well. And when this podcast drops, it'll be at the end of May, a time that a lot of people consider to be the unofficial start of summer. And I hope that you're looking forward to a great summer ahead. I know I am. At the time that I'm recording this, the past week has been really nice throughout Philadelphia. Although today it is raining, so you can't get all nice days. But the past week has been really nice. And I've been enjoying taking walks and spending time outside with my family and friends and just soaking up this nice weather. It's been a tough winter for those in PA and in Philly and throughout the state. We've had a tough winter, and so we're really enjoying this nice weather that we're having as we are entering the summer season. And one of the things that you might be thinking about around this time is staying physically fit or becoming more physically fit. And if you're thinking about that, today's guest is for you. I sat down with Evan Schwerbrock, the founder of Cane Enable Fitness. And as we'll hear throughout the episode, Evan has really used his career to leverage his personal experiences with the opportunity to coach blind and visually impaired people and really just continue to amplify the message that regardless of your blindness, you are able to stay physically active and contribute to your fitness goals. Cane Enable Fitness offers many different options for your fitness journey. You can get remote coaching, either in a one-on-one setting or group setting that is virtual, and it's tailored to your specific workout needs. There are also many public speaking opportunities as well, which you can contact Evan about, either for a blindness organization or agency or a school for the blind. Or there's even opportunities for Evan to come to your workplace and help you to stay physically active and confident when you move around your work environment. And there are many benefits to staying physically fit. You may be thinking, well, I don't want to compete or I don't want to be a bodybuilder. But is there an opportunity for me? And absolutely, there are many opportunities for you to become physically active and just be more confident throughout your environment. I've been on my fitness journey for the past 5 years. I've worked with a personal trainer locally to me, and it has been a wonderful experience to take an active role in staying physically fit. And in addition to being more confident, it also helps with my personal space, my physical awareness of my environment, and it just makes me feel good all around. So I highly recommend if you're thinking about taking the next step in your fitness journey, I hope you are inspired with this interview, and I hope that you will contact Evan at the methods that we talk about in the interview and throughout the show notes. We'll get to the interview in just a few minutes, but before we do, here's a message from Jonathan Mosen.
Make a difference with the National Federation of the Blind's Keep NFB Advancing Give $25 campaign. Each year, thousands of Federation members and friends contribute to support blind people, but we still need your help to fund our programs in 2026 and beyond. When you give $25 between May 15th and July 7th, you're entered into the Keep NFB Advancing drawing. Each $25 increment is a chance to win. Your support helps us continue to build a network that advances the lives of all blind people across America. You could win prizes like round-trip transportation for two to the 2027 NFB National Convention, hotel accommodations, registration, banquet tickets, or $2,000 cash. Want a chance to win a Braille Note Evolve from Humanware? Become a Federation Connector. Ask friends and family to contribute before National Convention and indicate that you prompted their giving. The Give $25 drive supports the Kenneth Jernigan Fund, Sun Fund, Ten Brook Memorial Fund, and the White Cane Fund. You can choose a fund when you donate. To enter, visit nfb.org/give25donate. That's nfb.org/give25donate. Call 410-659-9314, extension 2430. Or send a check to National Federation of the Blind and mention #Give25 and the fund in the memo. The winner will be announced July 8th, 2026. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, Jonathan. Always good to hear from you. Now, without further ado, let's turn to my conversation with Evan Schwerbrock from Cane and Able Fitness. Well, thank you, Evan, for your time today. It's really wonderful to have you on. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just, knocking things off the to-do list as usual.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to be talking primarily today about your company, which is Cane and Able Fitness. So can you start by giving the listeners a rundown of what you do for those who are not familiar?
Yeah, so I'm a visually impaired fitness professional, and I noticed that a lot of my interactions in the gym during grad school, getting my master's in kinesiology, consisted mostly of like pats on the back, sometimes literally, mostly verbally, of like, it's really great that you're in this building, basically. Like it was a phenomena that a blind person was in a gym. And I was like, man, if I'm doing the things that I'm doing here and just being congratulated for being in this space, it's got to be really hard for other people with visual impairments to be able to approach a gym or pursue fitness and have a happier, healthier life. So that's what I use my educational background and professional background to be able to do, is kind of bridge that gap of all these sometimes silly obstacles, sometimes very real obstacles with vision loss, and then being able to help people better access fitness and health concepts so that we're able to, whether at home or out and about, able to, again, live happier, healthier lives.
Can you tell us a little bit about your story of vision loss? I know that you lost your vision very recently after getting your bachelor's degree, which was involved in the fitness arena. Tell us about the trajectory of your life before losing your vision, and then when you had to pivot, and what were you planning to do, and then how did you pivot into the next chapter of your life with vision loss?
Really great question. I love the word pivot because that's exactly what I had to do. I had to really reassess a lot of things. I had started out as a tiny little nerdy kid, basically looked like Harry Potter, exactly, just a different color hair. Like I dressed up as him for Halloween one year. So I was not very physically gifted. I was very academically gifted and pushed in that avenue far more. So I was, the cliche little nerdy kid, wound up going to a math and science academy and learning how to problem solve an awful lot. But I was really drawn to using my academic prowess to be able to learn all about the body and training and how to build up my own physique and performance. And it started as a way to not get bullied as much on the basketball court, and wound up turning into an absolute obsession with powerlifting, Olympic lifting, bodybuilding, CrossFit, just practicing and having a good time with all those different things. And like I was basically running unofficial workout groups in college, getting my undergrad degree in health science. And people just thought it was wild that I was in the gym all the time and not the library pursuing that degree. But I just didn't know any other way. I love doing things in person and getting those sort of tactile feedback of what's actually going on in the body, and learning a lot from that. So I was in a gap year working several different jobs in the fitness industry back home in Kewanee, Illinois, when suddenly my eyesight started to go. So I was basically having a lot of blurred vision, and I didn't quite understand why. It's almost like when your eyes get really sleepy or you left your contacts in way too long, which I definitely always did, where your vision just gets very blurry. But then it started getting more and more extreme. I started getting more light sensitivity. There was a volleyball league I was in and called in as a sub here and there and was kind of a ringer one week. And the next week, probably appeared like I was very, very much impaired because I wouldn't even see the ball coming. So I, needless to say, was never invited back and cannot blame them with how bad that game went. Had a very scary truck ride and then realized, man, something else is up here. I thought that I had to get my contact subscription or prescription fixed, and it turned out we couldn't fix anything up front, me and the eye doctor. So then when I brought up, hey, well, my uncle and some other distant relatives have this disease called Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. Maybe there's something there. He went in the back, looked it up, took a picture of my optic nerve, and this is a former Army doc who came back almost crying. I was like, we figured it out. So that was late 2014. We knew instantly going to have to, like you very well put, pivot. And I went from trying to do strength and conditioning at D1 schools and do my grad program there, always interning, really, really grinding with high level athletes. And I went and pivoted to wonderfully, my sister was willing to take me in and live together while she was finishing her degree at University of Illinois, Chicago. So I quit applying anywhere else, only applied there and said, it's in God's hands. We'll see what happens. Luckily, I was accepted and wound up making that transition up there. So was able to learn a lot up there when it came to kinesiology, but I also made a big point to take a lot of disability courses because I knew between my disability and just how many disabled people I'd worked with previously through different summer camps and stuff, such as Camp Silka, working with people with mental and physical handicaps. I knew that was something that I would probably be able to contribute to. So I got to learn a lot about things through the disability studies department. And then it was just kind of a very slow pivot for me, getting out of the mindset of I'm going to work with top tier athletes. That's what I want to do, blah, 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 to, man, if I'm being treated like this in a gym, how bad is it for other blind people? And that's when I made that really big pivot of, start accumulating knowledge and kind of writing it down. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, I was working 3-4 jobs at a time as professor, exercise specialist, all these different things in Peoria, Illinois. And then that few months off really gave me the time to just knock out. I think I started with 30 articles pre-prepared about anything to do with blindness, physical activity, easy to do programs even at home, especially during the pandemic and things like that. And just started K-Enable Fitness, finally ripped off the Band-Aid, and we've been rolling ever since.
Well, that's a great story of how you're able to use your resilience to see a problem, see that need, and then be able to realize that you could make the situation better and use your knowledge to work with others to help them accomplish their goals. So great story of how you were able to overcome in that way. We'll talk about the mediums of instruction that you have, because you have many resources on your website and you offer remote coaching, and you offer some in-person opportunities as well. But I want to talk about how your programs differ from what a lot of people know as traditional fitness training. And I think a lot of our listeners are familiar with the concepts of going to a gym, whether as a sighted person or a blind person. And they're very familiar with the barriers that can come from not being prepared in these situations or not working with people that are unfortunately not prepared in these situations. Can you walk us through what are some of the barriers that you found and your clients have found in other settings of fitness training, and how your programs differ, and just the trajectory so people can get a clear picture?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try not to ramble too long. This is some stuff I get brought in different organizations for as more lengthy consulting. So the brief bit when it comes to actually like hiring a trainer, I've had many people that are like, I had a trainer before and it took months for them to kind of figure out how things worked with me. And that's where I can come in and, like I talked about earlier, problem solving is I've made all the mistakes. I've overthought everything. I do, but my brain does not slow down nearly enough. I wish it did sometimes. So I've done a lot of overthinking and how to audibly or tactily explain things. And when it comes to working with a person with vision loss, we really do need to simplify things a lot of times. I remember one client who she's like, I had a trainer writing me workouts, and then I would go and do them at the gym, and they would have me doing this tricep 3 exercises in a row, but they would be on different sides of the gym, and I was terrified. And she also didn't want to use her cane at that point, so it was just like potential awkward interaction after potential awkward interaction, and then maybe your machine gets stolen, all that stuff. So when it comes to training people with vision loss, I've specialized in getting people able to condense their environment, where instead of worrying about finding the next thing or the thing I just use over and over and over, it's just really focusing on one thing at a time. It really provides people a lot of success. I want the stress of your workout to be the actual exercise and much less so the logistics or the people at the gym. And it goes for the same with home workouts. I make sure that it's more simple so that we're able to get a strong stimulus, but also not have to just overcome the different issues that come with vision loss, whether it be someone took your piece of equipment, whether it be trying to find the right weight of dumbbells and you're switching them 5 different times, things like that. So being able to kind of lock in your onus of focus into a smaller circle all the time becomes very, very helpful. And then when it comes to the different training needs for people with visual impairment, sometimes they defer, and actually usually they defer, sadly, because we tend to be a more sedentary population. We tend to have issues with posture, things like that. And then there's also a lot of different cueing where we need to be taught differently. I always joke at conferences when I'm speaking that, you can have that shirtless, like ripped guy with gelled hair and all this stuff just saying, oh, just do this, and like showing you on a YouTube video. That doesn't work for our community. We need to make sure that we are learning things from both audibly, but also tactily, the sensations that we need to be searching for in order to make sure that we're doing something right. Since we can't live in a mirror, video feedback is, if we're even able to do it with whatever vision that we have, going to be a little bit slow. So I have these systems of taking outside tactile information and internalizing that and then turning that into an audible cue so that we're then able to keep people progressing in a way that actually makes sense for us. And I find that those couple of points when it comes to the cueing and the proper programming are really great ways to get people less nervous about the gym and amplify their results way faster. We're able to get people actually getting in workouts instead of the trainer learning how to work with someone with this disability and being nervous about it for several months. And we're able to cut a lot of that initial acclimation for both parties basically to zero.
Well, that's great. And I would imagine that there's a real scaffolding effect of confidence that's able to be built when your clients are working on one aspect and they see success, and then they're able to transfer that to another aspect and to keep growing and to have that continued steady growth. I'm sure that's a real confidence builder in that way. I know that I work out with a personal trainer here locally, and not only has it helped me to be fit, of course, but it also really helps to boost my mood and my confidence and my spatial awareness as well, which I found to be very beneficial.
So you're making more and more good points. That's secretly a big reason why I do what I do, because there's all kinds of different obstacles and adaptations we have to make in life. And if we're used to learning we can do those things in the gym, especially if we put in hard work and we have some sort of plan in place, which is essentially an exercise program. I was just modifying mine earlier and going, man, I just got to follow this and good things will happen. And then, you put in that hard work and you learn block after block, week after week, program after program, that putting in that hard work with a good plan, you can accomplish more than potentially you even thought. And like you said, that transfers to the rest of life as well. So it really does build you up. I don't need everybody in the blind community, competing against me and strongman and stuff and doing crazy, silly lifts like I do. But if they're able to do the minimum effective dose and get those really wonderful lessons, have some more energy and, just get to be a little bit more vivacious, that's what I'm looking for people.
Well, let's talk about the content that you have written on your site. I think that would be a place that people can go to get a feel for the way that you write and the way that you communicate information. And you certainly have a wealth of that on your site. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, on our website, we have a blog that has over 50 articles. About, gosh, all kinds of different things. I was just interviewed by the main organization in Britain about a sauna article that I had written years ago. There's all kinds of at-home workouts, different postural exercises, how to understand the importance of stretching or foot strength and balance, things like that. So scrolling through there, you're probably going to find something that applies to you. I also touch on like sleep and nutrition hacks as well in order to make those more accessible for our population. There's also some different links when it comes to like coaching, where you can sign up for remote and affordable coaching with me, where I make sure to update everybody's stuff weekly. You get everything individualized for your particular situation and wherever you're at. And then I also have a couple of one-off programs, whether it be for grip strength, or the other one is called Upright, which is for fall prevention, which touches on a lot of single leg strength and balance. Again, that foot strength and balance, better posture. And both those programs are tiered to kind of meet you wherever you're at.
Can you take us through the process of how you learn and how you have evolved to be very descriptive? And I would think that this is something you're continually evolving as you do what you do. But how has it been learning the terminology and how to use that terminology to effectively train clients and get them to feel comfortable? I'm always interested in that kind of behind the scenes process of how people do what they do.
Yeah, like you said, it's ever evolving. You can find some little hacks all the time that tend to work. And in the vision loss community, it turns into a very big spectrum as well of learning just how much somebody knows or has had experience with exercise before. There is a sad trend of in the blind community, the sighted community tends to think, oh, they don't need to know what their bicep is. They don't need to know what their hamstrings are and different things like that. I've had people go, oh, my quads are sore, and point at their hamstrings and things like that. They're like, oh, on the back of my leg. And so even basic anatomy is often shrugged off when it comes to the education of blind people. So if we do know those things, we're fortunate, and it tends to buck that trend. But then also being taught how to do things properly, not just when it comes to saying something like keep your chest up on your squat, things like that, or same thing with a deadlift. We can have people turning a deadlift into this weird pseudo squat because of the cues that are given and how those get translated into the blind person's head, because they hear chest up and they think one thing, whereas what the coach was actually going for was maintaining neutral spine posture. So we're able to cue things a little bit differently so people are able to actually feel that. And I've developed different drills and stuff in order to get those sensations so people go, oh, I got it now. And then we're able to really rebuild what terms they're familiar with and how to interpret those. Again, it's an art form. It's so much fun for me. But I've been doing this for, gosh, nearly 2 decades now. I was kind of seen as like an exercise leader and started a student athletic trainer program even back in high school. So I've gotten to be practicing this for a very, very long time. And it's a really fun part of my job.
Well, you touched a little bit earlier on the group options that you have. And I know that you have some opportunities where you can speak to groups on a virtual platform and an in-person platform. And you also have some options for people in the workplace. Can you touch on those?
Yeah, that's actually a big part of my offerings I'm really trying to build up. It's not always that common to have a bunch of us blind people in the same room. But when we do, or if we have practitioners like O&Ms, TBIs all in the same room, that's a really great opportunity to get some of this information across. And then Q&As are always like the most fun thing for me because you're always going to get something different. And I'm always able to problem solve on the spot based off of years and years of other experiences working with blind people around the world. And that's a huge joy, being able to get that little bit of customization when people are like, I know this person who has this problem, and we are able to solve a lot of stuff on the spot. So when it comes to speaking, I've been blessed to be able to be a keynote speaker at, I don't even know how many conferences at this point, like International Orientation Mobility Online Symposium, different AER, including AER International spoken at, different schools for the blind. I do have a big goal of being able to get to if not all, most of the blind schools in the country. And then I've gotten to speak for multiple organizations overseas as well, like Guide Dogs Australia comes to mind. So being able to specialize the exercise physiology stuff and make it make sense for each individual population is a really fun thing. And then something else that I'm really working to grow is there are several organizations that employ usually hundreds of blind people. And it's usually like a factory setting, things like that, which I've worked with plenty of people who have done factory work or really hard manual labor, grew up doing that kind of stuff myself. And making sure that those employees, with the twist of vision loss mixed in, are able to maintain health and not be running into issues when it comes to their work environment and it not being laid out appropriately. The ergonomics of being able to make sure we're able to perform the job appropriately and in efficient ways that aren't going to beat up our body nearly as much. That's a really fun challenge for me as well, that I'm definitely looking forward to helping out with more. But basically, any level when it comes to any level of age, I'm going to be working at Capabilities Brockport again this year, and I'm on the board for Capabilities World now, helping blind children be able to be fitter and happier and for the long run. But I've also done fall prevention seminars with, people who are aging a lot and having issues sitting and standing, have some really cool interactions, even like a seminar tour down in Medellin, Colombia, where we had one lady within 2 minutes standing and being so happy that she didn't have knee pain anymore, just with a small tweak to her technique for getting out of a chair. And she insisted on coming to the next seminar at a physical therapy school and talking for 10 minutes about how helpful that stuff was. So I'm very fortunate to be able to pop into a bunch of little parts of our demographic.
Well, that's fantastic. And I really love what you talked about with going into people's workplaces, because I think there's also this trend that we see where people lose their vision and they feel like they have to give up their line of work, or they have that hesitancy to return to work. And so to have some of that confidence in regards to just how they move around their building and how they're able to be freer in the way they interact with others in that way is really an asset.
Absolutely.
That's
And
great.
a lot of stuff I'll train people for. I have one visually impaired client right now who he was getting a lot of pain because he's got an office job and he's got low vision. So he's leaning into his devices all the time and finding that he's running into a lot of pain. So we came up with a very non-intrusive little bit of a mini program for him to be able to do every hour or so at work, or if he's noticing discomfort, that's like completely erase that. He doesn't have his neck or low back pain at work really anymore. And if it starts to creep up, he knows what to do in order to solve that really quickly. And, with vision loss, we're going to have plenty of discomfort in our lives. So being able to take away some silly pains that kind of go along with it, that most medical professionals and stuff don't necessarily address is a huge twist that I try to bring to our community.
You mentioned that the coaching is a weekly session. Are there ways that you give your clients practice if they'd like to continue to do what you're showing them throughout the week? And how do you assess their progress in that way and keep them feeling comfortable in terms of the practice element that they can do in between?
Yeah, so the weekly stuff is actually not a live session. It's weekly. We update their program and we have weekly check-ins. I used to write like 8-week programs for people and then keep asking for updates, but it was really hard to get people to stay consistent and keep updating me and all that stuff. And it was kind of like pulling teeth. So when I switched to a weekly update model where you have to get your update to me at a certain time on Sunday, and then I go through everybody's programs individually, rewrite them, send a voice message clarifying, what all has changed, everything like that. And then I also allow my clients to be able to send me a WhatsApp message. We usually do voice messages because it's a lot more personal. I'm able to give a lot more detail, and we're able to have a little bit more of like a conversational back and forth just when it works for each of our schedules. And that way I'm able to keep giving them help or updates or tips or to clarify anything throughout the week. So it's basically a weekly update to a spreadsheet or a Word document, whatever is most accessible for the person. And then being able to talk that stuff through once they've gotten their update and then let them roll for the week. And it's obviously not just throw them to the wolves every week. especially in the beginning, we're really stair-stepping things in. I'm going to go, hey, we're not going to kill you with a workout at all. We're just going to start messing with some different things. I asked for a lot of video feedback, especially early on, where I'm able to zoom in, slow it down, however I need to do things in order to make sure that we're doing a good job and they're hitting the right positions and feeling more comfortable, giving them the proper tactile cues, and then turning that into an audible cue for them to be able to perfect their form down the road, even though I'm not in the room with them. And then we slowly start to ramp up once they start seeing that success. And the beauty of it is that little bit of a 2 or 3 week learning period is also exactly the amount of time really we need to just ride that minimum effective dose of, you haven't been working out? Cool. We're going to do 2 workouts a week. We're just going to absolutely nail it. You're going to do this quick little stretching routine that's going to help your low back feel better a couple times a week as well. And then we're able to slowly build up your volume so that you're not like everybody, starting the New Year's resolution every year, getting crushed by a couple of workouts and just limping around for a week and going, I'm not doing this anymore. So it's our great little easing period to get on the same page, make sure that we're able to use the right vernacular and be able to do cueing from a distance. Then also, like I said, not leaving them the first week absolutely hating exercise.
Do you also give recommendations of equipment that people can purchase to be able to do certain things that they want to do? I know that at gyms, they have the equipment, but if people are doing this from home, how are they able to access that, and how are they guided into getting certain types of weights or certain types of equipment that they might want to work on?
Good question. It basically comes down to whatever somebody already has and then what they want to invest extra. Fortunately, I'm only $99 a month, which is, I've had many clients just give me bonuses or tell me, hey, you need to raise your rates. This is ridiculous. You're way too qualified to be only charging this much, but I want to make sure it's accessible for the blind community. So it kind of depends on how much money people have to throw at equipment or want to throw at equipment. Sometimes around the holidays, it'll be like, hey, my family's going to get me another piece of workout equipment. What should I get? Or, hey, do you have a good workout bench idea? And so we'll talk through different models and variants of different exercise equipment that are more or less accessible in order for them to kind of make that decision themselves. But we always start with whatever they have, and then we go from there.
Oh, that's great. So you might be meeting with them in a live session to start with. It sounds like several times, but then it sounds like there's a flow of them writing out their progress and giving you updates on their time, and you're able to take your time to be able to write out and give them verbal feedback, and really think about how you're going to say it before you say it, that you don't have that opportunity necessarily in a live setting. So do you have to do a lot of preparation, like when you're talking with people and making sure you're saying it the right way when you're giving this feedback that's not live? Does it help to have that?
Yeah. So in the initial phases of starting to work with a client, I'm able to, we do a long phone call. They fill out a form that has, their goals, medical history, all that stuff. So then I'm able to get a better idea of what questions to ask. And we get on the same page just within that first phone call. And then we start going from there. And then totally blind or not, I do request videos, and we work very patiently in order to figure out a system for each person that works well for them. It may be going, hey, that phone angle didn't quite work. Whatever you're propping it up on, we got to have a different angle. And us just being able to be very patient and muddy through that. I do understand that there's a lot of complications with a vision loss, and some of these little hacks without pressure, like working on being able to do these processes, does take time. So we definitely take that time together and have, again, that ease in process. It could also be waiting for a loved one or support person to be able to take a video and things like that. So we're just able to use that video feedback when necessary, and especially it's more necessary in the beginning to make sure that people are doing things properly and then give them the right cues. And then when it comes to having to think too far ahead, not so much. It really turns into a very fortunate circumstance that I've got as much experience as I do and have worked with so many people, because then to me, it turns less into sheet music and having to plan ahead, and it turns more into jazz of being able to give them the right feedback on the spot when they send in a video or they're asking about something, so that we're able to get on that same page and give them the right stimulus. Again, everybody's experience is so wildly varied that I have to meet everybody where they're at. But again, that's a huge perk of the job.
Well, that's great. And I think there's a lot of value in people taking ownership of their work and coming to you and saying, this is what worked, this is what didn't work. I would think that that would also give them more of a agency and the ability to learn the terminologies themselves and clarify things for you so that you're both on the same page. Is that something that has increased just in terms of the level of independence that they have in their own journey?
Oh, for sure. Accountability and mindset are built in with how I operate. People are required to turn things in a certain time. They're supposed to ask questions if necessary. If I request a video, got to get it done. Um, and obviously if we write 4 workouts for a week and that's what you've agreed to, that's what you got to do. So, having that built in, and then again, that reassurance of I will be patient when it's appropriate to be patient. If you are visually impaired and trying to figure out how the heck to get a camera on your phone working and pointing towards you at the right angles for then it to have recorded the right stuff, that does take patience. But you going, oh, I can't do this workout like because my squats feel terrible. And I was like, well, you're supposed to send me a video and we're supposed to figure this stuff out together. So there is that ebb and flow of understanding, but also I get to be, give that tough love out for people as well, which, in the end, people really, really appreciate. And it's the people who really own up to any mistakes and boom, it's totally forgiven. No big deal. And then move past that and have just their best week over and over and over that have the most success.
Thank you for clarifying that. Let's talk about your own personal accomplishments in this area. I know that you are very involved in the strongman competitions. And at the top of the show, you mentioned that you were the strongest disabled person in the world. Take us through that journey.
I had experienced a lot of weird looks from people apparently. And my buddy at the gym during grad school was telling me, you're doing all these weird lifts. And I was like, I'm learning about this old like Russian kettlebell things, blah, 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 all these old timey lifts. And one day he goes, why don't you do a strongman competition? And I was like, oh yeah, that would make sense. That's what I've been searching for. So I just signed up for a strongman competition. I'd never done strongman when I was sighted. And so I had to figure out all these different ways to train for it, just usually in just a gym setting, and do my first competition. And after that first one, I'd popped both my hamstrings on the last event and everything, but I was just absolutely in love with it. And then it was kind of off to the races from there. That was back in 2017 and been competing pretty much ever since. Had some blips here and there where I wasn't able to compete when I was working up in Alaska, stuff like that. But when I heard about the adaptive category initially, which is for people with disabilities, and there's different subcategories depending on what disability you have. I was initially like, I'm not going to mess with that right now. Like, I don't know enough about it, and there didn't seem to be the availability of opportunities and stuff. And again, I was bopping around the country with work and stuff at that point. But then it was just shy of 2 years ago now. I decided to hop in that space and did America's Strongest Athlete with Disabilities. Was able to get into that community a little bit and learn just how hard everybody, regardless of their circumstances, are pushing. And decided I wanted to be more of a part of that and helping to grow the adaptive space. So I wound up doing the World Championships in England that year, and then this last year at official strongman games, they had the Adaptive Strength World Championships, which is essentially World's Strongest Disabled Man, and I was able to come out on top in my category. So was able to win that title, and yeah, it just leads to being able to parlay that into just showing that I'm walking the walk and I really do try to live by example. And apparently lifting weird rocks and putting logs over my head is my way of doing that.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful accomplishment. What are some of the accommodations that you've had to make, or some of the things that you've had to get used to in your own workflow or working with others when you've been part of these programs?
Yeah, so that's another thing about strongman is it's always different. You will never have the same competition, which to me is the fun of it. If it was powerlifting, it's 3 attempts to squat, 3 benches, 3 deadlifts, and that's it. And it's always the same. It's always just boom, A to B. It's always feels the same. You always have the same bar, all this stuff. But in strongman, it can be wildly different. So, for example, at the World Championships this year, we had 5 different logs that we had to try to clean and press over our heads. So they were in the first 4 were in like in a square pattern up on pads and everything. So it was interesting to plot that out both tactily on my hand. My wife drew out the design, and then I was able to take an extra minute before the event actually started to tap through the maze of heavy logs and be able to feel where I needed to walk once the event actually started. And the next event was a timber frame carry, which was it's basically a really heavy farmer carry, but it's a giant frame. So if we think about um, a hex bar or trap bar that encapsulates you, but it's made out of giant like railroad ties. It weighed 550 pounds and we had to walk it 50 feet as fast as possible. So fortunately for me, my way of doing that is, I worked on my sensations in my feet to make sure that I'm walking straight more often than not. And then it's just go as fast as possible and wait till somebody tells me to put it down. So that one is pretty simple where it's very just audible, done. And I go, okay, cool. I get to drop this now. The next event was a 4-bar deadlift ladder where we went 455, 495, 545, and then an extra long whippy bar with 600, which creates some different sensations. So I had to be able to feel how far away each bar was from the next. So I knew about how far I had to walk. And then I practiced stepping over bars, even in my competition prep, all my training, and then reapproaching the bar. So being able to make sure you're symmetrical with, picking up over 500 pounds is pretty darn important. So using my hands to feel the knurling or that rough part on the bar and be able to tell that I'm symmetrical, use that as a frame to set my feet within and make sure that those are symmetrical as well. And then drop my hips and pick up the bar. All those little things we train for outside of the competition. And then the last thing was probably the most interesting when it came to actually doing accommodations. It was a sandbag carry, but you had to carry the sandbag from the start line to a hitching post, which is basically just a large wooden barrier, and there's a little bit of room to like duck underneath, or you had to go all the way around it. So you had to load it all the way over that, go get the sandbag wherever it landed, and then cross another line. And then we had to immediately pick up another sandbag that was next to that where we would drop our sandbag and do the same thing back. So there was multiple different transitions. So there can be the confusion of where the finish line is, where that hitching post is. And what we did is my wife was literally just banging her hand on that hitching post to give me audible feedback and yelling here, 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 here. And we even practiced that in the gym of her yelling here, 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 and me being able to just echolocate and lock in on that noise and aim for that. And then make sure I know once I hit about that point, I'm going to have to physically hit that wooden post and load over it. So we did that. And then she ran to the finish line as I was reapproaching the bag, heading straight, hearing here, 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 and then dropping it. And then I actually did a whole extra competition last July in order to physically prepare and get our system in and step for that part. And then the next part of she went to the next bag I had to pick up and yelled bag, 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 bag. So I was able to just lock in and transition very seamlessly to that bag. And then we rinse and repeat it on the way back. So it sounds like not very much. It's just, 4 sandbag picks and carries. But with how big that hitching post was, we were literally in the back practicing ducking under and all these little things. That's the variability that we have in strongman and the way that strongman allows you to have the level of accommodation. Nobody's lifting any weights for me or anything like that, but the level of accommodation for me to understand where I was in space, where I was about to be in space in order to be able to succeed.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us. I think it's great that you can show your clients and all of our listeners here that you are able to adapt. And it really gives us a very strong understanding that there's opportunities for us out there to be involved in fitness as well.
Absolutely. But I think the rambling shows just how much minutia can be involved in order to succeed, but all that overthinking, that over practicing, the visualization, and just being able to ingrain these things leads to a lot of people accusing you of having perfect vision on the internet. We got a lot of fun, goofy backlash on the internet of people not understanding what blindness is and then being able to operate well in that space due to a lot, over a decade of hard work and dedication and very intentional practice turned out very, very well in winning a world championship. So it's a lot of that minutia that I get to ramble about in my head and then simplify it down so that, my clients don't have to hear 15 minutes of different considerations. Instead, all of that, all those tiny little things, those tiny little details, I just build into their program and they naturally learn those things.
That's a great point that really can be applied to life, and I'm sure it's gotten you very far, is this point of not overthinking something and not over analyzing the possibilities, because there is a fine line between preparation and going too far to where you don't feel confident or where you are over complicating something that isn't as complicated. And it sounds like you've really been able to work that out in your mind to know when enough is enough, but also to know that amount of rigor that you need to plan for yourself and for others. So that's a really great point.
Yeah, I really try to be the guinea pig for my clients over the years. I've done a bit of everything: Spartan races, Olympic lifting, CrossFit, and now the focus is strongman. But I I want to take that burden of overthinking all the different variables, away from them, and I'll take that on in order to give people just what's most important in us to be able to develop them even faster.
Well, as we close our time together, do you have any tips that you can share generally or just some general advice to the listeners about ways that they can take the first steps in their fitness journey, or for people who maybe were involved in fitness activities before they lost their vision? What is your philosophy and just some general tips that you can give for people at any stage of their journey?
Yeah, so something that I came up with when I was in grad school and I felt like I was drowning with, trying to still get in workouts, figuring out how to adapt in that college environment, relearning how to learn with vision loss then, having professors try to talk me out of being in school. There was so many scary stimuli to me. And the phrase that I just came up with was do it anyway. Like things are going to be scary. Oh, there's this obstacle, there's this and that, like all these different barriers. Just do it anyway. And having that mindset of I'm going to get it done, then you get to get out of that fear response. And instead you go into, okay, how am I going to get this done? And then you get to work on the process. And giving people that process is a huge part of what I do. Obviously, we've done a very thorough job talking about all the very personalized ways that might cost you a little bit in order to hire my services or something. But I have a lot of free resources for people as well. A couple that come to mind are our free gym acclimation program, which is a 3-week program, 6 workouts in a gym. And it's stair step to help you ease into the gym. It's a way to have these independence building tasks, what I call them in the program, be able to download those files, those PDFs, and be able to go, okay, I have to accomplish these things today. And, day one is learn where the bathroom is. You don't need to be in your fourth workout and it's that time and you're like, oh shoot, I have no idea where those are here. I was more worried about the weights or the cardio area and stuff like that. And you slowly learn how to map out the gym and just focus on one chunk at a time instead of getting overwhelmed by absolutely everything. So that's a really helpful program we've gotten some good feedback on. Another one that people can even do at home is our free foot strength and balance program that has 2 different tiers. We have our training wheels program and our 1 step ahead program. And those are free on our YouTube channel. You can just look up the foot strength and balance playlist. And those are 2 of our biggest and best resources for sure that have gotten people moving, feeling a little bit more confident, and then being able to parlay that into pushing in whichever direction that they want, whatever recreation or exercise that they like. So again, when it comes to doing it anyway, you do still need that process. And I'm really happy that we've been able to provide some different resources in order to hopefully help out with that.
Well, that's a great concept, because once you commit to something, then there's more of a reason why you wouldn't go back on that commitment, and more of a reason why you would find ways to accomplish those goals and get around those barriers. And I think it's so important Just as you're saying, to think about once you've committed to something, then you know you're going to do it, and you can really visualize that coming to fruition.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. I'm just trying to be a Robin to as many Batmans as possible.
Very good. Well, as we close today, you mentioned your website and we've talked about your YouTube. Can you give us all your contact information where folks can find you and learn more?
Absolutely. It's just Cane Enable Fitness, spelled funny, because even though we use a cane, we're still able to do stuff. CANEANDABLE Fitness. You can find that anywhere: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Our website is canenablefitness.com. And if anybody has any questions whatsoever, just reach out to canenablefitness@gmail.com. Also, a bit of self promotion. I will be going to Scotland in August in order to be the first blind person and second disabled person ever to lift the well renowned Dinny stones, which are these mean stones on rings, and it's only about just over 400 people ever have lifted them, whereas like over 7,000 people have climbed Everest. So it's going to be a big rare feat, and again, just trying to be an example for what other blind people can do. So I'll probably be able to catch that example coming up here in the next couple of months.
Wow. Well, I wish you the best with that. And I do love the name, by the way. I really think it's a clever name. How did you come up with that? At what point?
Well, I'm Christian and I wanted my little biblical reference in there. And when I started using my white cane, all of a sudden people were like, oh, he can't do that. He can't. It was like instantly. Like it was so weird. And I was like, I'm still able to do stuff. And then it just kind of clicked in my head one day and it was like, that'll put the message out there really quickly with just the name. So we ran with it.
Great. Well, it's very catchy. And as a Christian myself, I see the reference there. Yeah, very clever.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for your time today. And to the listeners out there, I highly recommend checking out the Cane Enable Fitness resources as we mentioned today. I hope that you will be able to get some more clients, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Hopefully, some of this rambling was able to give even one person the little details that help them make a lot more progress.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Evan, and I'd like to thank him for taking the time to conduct this interview. Don't forget, if you missed any of the information in the audio, go to the show notes. It's all there for you. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I hope that you visit the website and reach out to Evan if you have any questions. Follow him on social media so you can stay up to date with the great work that he's doing. And if you're interested in coaching or a seminar opportunity, I highly recommend contacting Evan and booking him for his services. We'd love to hear from you. Do you have a comment to share about your fitness journey or a tip that you think our listeners would be able to benefit from? Contact us. You can send us an email at whitecanesconnect@gmail.com or call us at 267-338-4495. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful day. Take care.